Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, watching the stars through the main window. He had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 23 years and never seen anything like what was happening now. The sensors showed massive ships coming out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. These ships were unlike anything in human records. The enemy vessels looked like giant crystals floating in space. Each one was 3 times larger than Earth's biggest battleship. Their surfaces glowed with strange blue light that hurt to look at directly. Captain Lisa Barnes called from her destroyer Falcon to report that more ships kept appearing every few minutes. Jake had fought pirates and rebels across human space, but these aliens were different. Their technology was far beyond what humanity possessed. The first attack came without any warning or message. Bright beams of energy shot from the crystal ships and destroyed an entire orbital defense platform in seconds. Commander Ryan Clark was stationed at Luna Base when the attack began. He watched through the observation deck as Earth's defense satellites exploded one after another. The aliens moved with perfect coordination like they had planned this assault for years. Human ships tried to fight back, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy hulls. Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded the Mars Patrol Fleet when she got the emergency alert. Her ships rushed back toward Earth, but they were too far away to help. She could only watch as the blue energy beams tore through the home fleet. Ships that had taken years to build were destroyed in minutes. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire according to the brief radio transmissions that human intelligence managed to decode. They spoke of humanity as a lesser species that needed to be removed from their expansion path. There was no negotiation or demand for surrender. They simply wanted humans gone. Jake ordered all available ships to form defensive lines around Earth. Captain Barnes brought her destroyer alongside the battleship Thunder commanded by Captain Bill Stevens. They worked together to create overlapping shield zones, but the alien weapons cut through their defenses like they were made of paper. The battle lasted 3 days, but everyone knew the outcome from the first hour. Human ships fought bravely, but they were completely outmatched. For every alien ship damaged, 10 human vessels were destroyed. The space around Earth filled with debris and the bodies of brave sailors. Commander Clark began evacuating civilians from Luna Base as alien ground troops landed on the moon's surface. The Zephyrian soldiers looked like tall insects made of the same crystal material as their ships. They moved fast and their weapons could punch through human armor, easily. Captain Rodriguez led a desperate attack against an alien command ship near Mars. Her small fleet managed to damage its shields before being wiped out completely. She sent a final message saying that humanity must remember this day and never give up fighting. The evacuation ships worked around the clock to save as many people as possible. Captain Tony Baker commanded a convoy of civilian transports trying to escape the solar system. His ship, the Guardian, carried 15,000. Refugees, including many children who watched their home, disappear behind them. Colonel Ben Hayes commanded the last defense, position on Earth at the Antarctic complex. His soldiers fought alien ground forces for 6 hours before being overwhelmed. The crystal beings showed no mercy to wounded humans or civilians trying to surrender. Jake watched from the Valiant as more alien ships arrived to finish their work. The Earth's surface began to glow red as the aliens used massive weapons to burn entire continents. Cities that had stood for centuries were turned to ash in minutes. The blue oceans boiled away into space. Commander Clark managed to save 2 million people before Luna Base fell. His evacuation fleet included ships commanded by Captain Sarah Miller and Captain Dave Wilson. They fought a running battle with alien fighters as they escaped toward the outer planets. The final message from Earth came from Colonel Hayes, as his position was overrun. His voice crackled through the static as he spoke the words that would drive humanity for years to come. He said, "Remember us and avenge us and make them pay for what they have done." Jake ordered the surviving fleet to retreat to the emergency rally point at Jupiter. Only 37 ships remained from the 200 that had defended Earth. Captain Barnes was among the survivors, along with Commander Clark and his refugee convoy. The Zephyrians spent another day destroying everything in the solar system. They blew up the orbital factories and mining stations. They shattered the moon into pieces and scattered the debris across space. They wanted to make sure nothing remained of human civilization. The alien fleet left as suddenly as it had arrived. Their crystal ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind a dead solar system. Earth was a burned rock covered in radioactive ash. The sun still shone, but there was nothing left for its light to warm. Jake gathered the surviving captains for a final meeting before they scattered to different star systems. Captain Barnes spoke for everyone when she said that humanity would return someday. Captain Baker promised that the children in his refugee ships would grow up knowing about Earth and the need for justice. The survivors split into small groups and headed for distant human colonies. They carried with them the memory of Earth's destruction and a burning desire for revenge. The Zephyrian Empire had won this battle, but they had also created an enemy that would never forget or forgive. Commander Clark took his convoy to the Proxima Centauri colonies, where he began organizing refugee camps. Captain Barnes headed for the Outer Rim territories to warn other human settlements. Jake himself went to the capital world of New Terra to report to the government. The news of Earth's destruction shocked the entire human species. Billions of people learned that their homeworld was gone and their civilization nearly extinct. But instead of despair, the survivors felt something else growing in their hearts. They felt rage and determination, and an unbreakable will to make their enemies pay. The Zephyrian Empire had made one crucial mistake. They had left witnesses alive to tell the story of what happened. These survivors would spend every day working toward the moment when humanity could return in force. The aliens had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. 5 years had passed since Earth burned, and the scattered human colonies had transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before. President Katie Johnson stood before the emergency session of the Colonial Assembly on New Terra and announced the most ambitious project in human history. Every resource and every life would be dedicated to building a fleet that could avenge their fallen homeworld. General Paul Miller had spent those 5 years traveling between the refugee settlements and remote colonies. He found humans living in mining asteroids and farming moons who had never seen Earth but felt its loss like a physical wound. These people volunteered everything they had for the great mission. Entire families moved to construction sites to work on the massive shipbuilding program. The first challenge was finding places to build such an enormous fleet. Dr. Sam Parker led teams of engineers who surveyed hundreds of star systems looking for suitable locations. They needed asteroid fields for raw materials and gas giants for fuel. They also needed places hidden from Zephyrian scouts who might discover the project. Chief designer Laura Kim worked 18 hours every day creating blueprints for the new warships. She had studied every piece of Zephyrian wreckage that the survivors brought back from Earth. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but humans were good at learning from their enemies. Laura figured out how to copy their shield generators and improve them. Captain Steve Turner commanded the first test flights of the new technology. His ship, the UES Retribution, was built at the secret Proxima Centauri shipyard, where thousands of workers labored around the clock. The vessel was 3 times larger than any previous human warship and carried weapons that could punch through crystal armor. Lieutenant Commander Beth Anderson joined Steve's crew as his tactical officer. She had lost her parents and 2 brothers when Earth fell and carried their memory into every battle simulation. Her job was to study Zephyrian combat patterns and find weaknesses that human forces could exploit in the coming war. Navigation Officer Pete Johnson had escaped Earth with Commander Clark's refugee convoy. His wife died in the evacuation when their transport was attacked by alien fighters. Pete spent years learning how to plot courses through hostile space so the human fleet could reach Zephyrian territory without being detected. The construction effort required resources on a scale never before attempted. Mining colonies like the one run by Supervisor Jack Brown stripped entire asteroid belts down to nothing. Factory worlds operated at maximum capacity with workers pulling double shifts every day. Children learned mathematics and engineering instead of regular school subjects. 16-year-old Alex Wright was one of thousands of young people who entered accelerated military academies. These schools taught them how to operate the complex systems on the new warships. Alex dreamed of commanding his own ship someday and making the aliens pay for destroying his birth planet. Captain Maria Santos oversaw the construction of the heavy battleships at the Titan facility. These massive vessels required special shipyards built inside the gas giant's rings. Each battleship took 2 years to complete and needed a crew of 8,000 people to operate effectively. Rear Admiral Nick Thompson managed the logistics for the entire project. His job was to make sure that food and supplies reached every construction site. Transport ships carried materials between star systems while maintaining complete radio silence to avoid detection by enemy scouts. The human colonies sacrificed everything for the fleet. Families ate basic rations so more metal could go into ship hulls. Luxury items disappeared from stores as every factory focused on military production. People worked until they collapsed and then got up to work more the next day. Commander Joe Roberts led the engineering teams that solved countless technical problems. Human technology had to be adapted to work with alien systems. The shield generators required special power sources, and the weapons needed new targeting computers. Every solution led to 3 more problems that needed solving. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Susan Davis treated workers who collapsed from exhaustion and stress. The pace of construction pushed human endurance to its limits. She also prepared medical facilities for the warships, knowing that many brave souls would be wounded in the coming battles. Captain Rick Allen commanded reconnaissance squadrons that ventured into dangerous space to gather intelligence. His pilots, like Lieutenant Jenny Clark and Flight Commander Tony Moore, risked their lives to map Zephyrian patrol routes and defensive positions. This information would be crucial for planning the attack. The breakthrough came when engineers figured out how to mass-produce the alien technology. Factory supervisor Linda Roberts developed assembly line methods that could build shield generators 10 times faster than before. Her innovations allowed the construction schedule to be cut from 15 years to 8 years. Admiral Jake Morrison toured the shipyards regularly to maintain morale among the workers. He spoke to welders and technicians and reminded them that every rivet they placed brought humanity closer to justice. His presence inspired people to work even harder despite their exhaustion. The first completed warships began arriving at the secret staging areas. Captain Helen Martin commanded a destroyer squadron that provided security for the construction sites. Her ships practiced combat maneuvers while staying hidden from any possible Zephyrian surveillance. As the years passed, the human fleet grew larger than anyone had imagined possible. Hundreds of thousands of vessels took shape in shipyards scattered across dozens of star systems. Each ship carried the hopes and anger of billions of human beings who demanded justice for Earth. The final construction phase required coordination between 17 different shipyards. Admiral Morrison established communication networks that allowed real-time planning between all the facilities. The logistics were incredibly complex, but human determination made the impossible become reality. General Miller announced that 900,000 warships had been completed and were ready for combat operations. The fleet included massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire enemy formations and small fighters fast enough to dodge alien weapons. Every vessel was crewed by volunteers who had trained for years. President Johnson gave the final authorization for Operation Homecoming. Admiral Morrison received orders to take the largest military force ever assembled by any species and use it to destroy the Zephyrian Empire completely. The time for building was over, and the time for war had finally arrived. The human fleet began moving toward the assembly point at the edge of known space. Ship after ship emerged from hidden bases and joined the growing armada. Captains like Steve Turner and Maria Santos led their vessels toward a destiny that would determine the future of both human and alien civilizations. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and gave the order that echoed across human space. Today they would begin the journey home, and today they would reclaim what had been stolen from them. The greatest military force in galactic history was ready to seek justice for the ashes of Earth. The journey to Zephyrian space would take 18 months through the most dangerous regions of the galaxy. Admiral Morrison divided the massive human fleet into 7 separate task forces to avoid detection by enemy scouts. Each group would travel a different route through hostile territory before meeting at the final staging area near the alien border. Captain Maria Santos commanded the vanguard fleet of 12,000 ships as they entered the Void Nebula. This region of space was filled with radiation storms and gravity wells that could crush a starship in seconds. Her navigators worked constantly to plot safe passages through the deadly obstacles while maintaining complete radio silence. Rear Admiral Nick Thompson led the heavy assault group through the Broken Rings asteroid field. His massive battleships and dreadnoughts were too large to hide easily, so they traveled through areas where sensor readings would be confused by floating debris. The journey was slow, but it kept the most powerful human ships safe from discovery. The smaller task forces had their own challenges during the long voyage. Commander Joe Roberts led a fleet of destroyers and cruisers along the galactic rim, where pirates and raiders attacked any ship that looked valuable. His forces had to fight several battles with criminal gangs while trying to stay hidden from Zephyrian patrols. Lieutenant Colonel Grace Williams established contact with alien species that had suffered under Zephyrian expansion. The first meeting happened when her diplomatic ship encountered a damaged vessel from the Thalassian Republic. These aquatic aliens had been fighting the Crystal Empire for decades and offered valuable intelligence about enemy tactics. The Thalassian war chief, called Coral Singer Naya, shared detailed maps of Zephyrian defensive positions. Her people had lost 3 colony worlds to the alien invaders and understood human anger perfectly. She warned that the crystal beings were incredibly disciplined fighters who never retreated or showed mercy to their enemies. Captain Steve Turner's battle group discovered another species that hated the Zephyrians even more than humans did. The crystallites were silicon-based life forms whose homeworld had been completely strip-mined by the Empire. Their rocky bodies made them perfect engineers, and they offered to help improve human weapon systems. The alien engineers worked alongside humans like Dr. Sam Parker to upgrade the fleet's firepower. Chief designer Laura Kim learned new techniques for focusing energy beams that could penetrate crystal armor more effectively. These improvements were shared with all 7 task forces through encrypted data bursts. Admiral Morrison received regular reports from his scattered commanders as they made their way toward enemy territory. Captain Rick Allen's reconnaissance ships provided updated intelligence about Zephyrian fleet movements. His pilots, like Lieutenant Jenny Clark, discovered that the aliens had expanded their borders significantly since destroying Earth. The journey became more dangerous as the human fleet approached inhabited star systems. Flight Commander Tony Moore led scouting missions that revealed 3 more species had been conquered by the Zephyrians in recent years. The alien empire now controlled 22 star systems with over 2 million warships defending them. Captain Helen Martin commanded the intelligence-gathering operations that intercepted enemy communications. Her teams discovered that the Zephyrians had built massive fortress worlds to guard their territory. These defensive positions were armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets and protected by energy shields stronger than anything humans had ever seen. The most valuable contact came when Lieutenant Colonel Williams met with representatives of the Verdanian Republic. These plant-based aliens had fought the Zephyrian Empire to a standstill for over 50 years. Their ambassador, called Thornspeaker Zix, provided detailed information about crystal, technology, and military doctrine. The Verdanians warned that Zephyrian warriors belonged to a warrior caste that considered death in battle to be the highest honor. These soldiers would never surrender or retreat even when facing impossible odds. They also revealed that the crystal beings could communicate instantly across vast distances through some kind of mental network. Commander Dan Wilson analyzed all the intelligence data and created tactical plans for the coming battle. His calculations showed that humanity would be fighting against overwhelming odds even with 900,000 ships. The enemy had superior technology and defensive advantages that would make victory extremely difficult. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Susan Davis prepared field hospitals and medical ships for the massive casualties that were expected. Her staff trained constantly to treat new types of wounds caused by crystal weapons. They also studied alien biology in case human forces encountered wounded Zephyrian prisoners who needed medical attention. The human fleet faced constant mechanical problems during the long journey. Captain Brian Lewis led repair teams that worked around the clock to fix damaged engines and weapon systems. The ships had been built quickly and some components failed. Under the stress of extended space travel, Navigation Officer Pete Johnson coordinated the complex task of keeping 7 different fleets moving toward their destination without being detected. His calculations had to account for gravity wells and stellar phenomena that could reveal human positions to enemy sensors. A single mistake could expose the entire operation. The psychological strain of the journey affected everyone in the fleet. Admiral Morrison visited different ships regularly to maintain morale among crews who had been traveling for over a year. He reminded them of Earth's destruction and the need for justice, but some sailors began to doubt whether revenge was worth the enormous cost. Captain Amy Rodriguez had survived the fall of Earth and now commanded a cruiser squadron in the main battle fleet. She spoke to younger officers who had never seen their homeworld and helped them understand what they were fighting for. Her stories of Earth's beauty and the horror of its destruction inspired courage in uncertain hearts. The alien allies provided more than just intelligence and technology. The Thalassans shared their knowledge of deep space survival, while the Crystallites taught humans new engineering techniques. The Verdanians offered strategic advice about fighting an enemy that had conquered dozens of civilizations. As the scattered human task forces approached the rendezvous point near Zephyrian space, Admiral Morrison felt the weight of galactic history on his shoulders. 900,000 ships carrying millions of human souls were about to face an enemy that had never been defeated in open battle. Captain Maria Santos was the first to reach the staging area after successfully navigating through the Void Nebula. Her ships had suffered minimal damage and her crews were ready for combat. One by one, the other task forces arrived until the largest military armada in galactic history was assembled. The final preparations began as human engineers made last-minute adjustments to weapons and shields. Rear Admiral Thompson positioned his heavy battleships in attack formation, while Captain Turner prepared his assault groups for the coming battle. The moment of truth was finally at hand, and humanity would either achieve justice or face extinction trying. The massive human fleet reached the outer borders of Zephyrian space expecting to find a powerful empire ready for war. Instead, they discovered something that defied all expectations and changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. The once mighty crystal civilization was fighting for its very survival against a threat far more terrifying than anything humans had ever imagined. Captain Helen Martin commanded the reconnaissance vessel Pathfinder as it approached the first Zephyrian system. Her sensors detected massive explosions and energy readings that suggested a huge battle was taking place. When she moved closer to investigate, she found entire planets stripped down to bare rock and floating debris that had once been crystal cities. The enemy that was destroying the Zephyrian Empire called themselves the Devourers, according to the panic-filled radio transmissions that human intelligence officers managed to intercept. These machine entities had come from the galactic core and consumed everything in their path to fuel their endless reproduction. They turned living worlds into lifeless factories that built more of their kind. Admiral Morrison received Helen's report with complete shock. The Zephyrians, who had seemed so powerful when they destroyed Earth, were now running for their lives from an enemy they could not defeat. Their crystal technology meant nothing against machines that could adapt to any weapon and rebuild themselves from the smallest fragments. Commander Dan Wilson analyzed the tactical data and discovered that the Devourer machines were unlike anything in galactic records. They reproduced exponentially by consuming matter and converting it into new units. A single machine could become 1,000 within days if it had enough raw material to work with. They showed no interest in conquest or negotiation, and simply devoured everything they encountered. The irony of the situation was staggering. Humanity had traveled across the galaxy with 900,000 warships to destroy the species that had burned Earth. Now, they found that same species on the verge of extinction from an enemy that posed a threat to every living thing in the galaxy. Captain Steve Turner intercepted desperate communications from Zephyrian military commanders begging for assistance from any available forces. Admiral Keth Var was the same crystal being who had led the attack on Earth 5 years earlier. Now he was pleading for help as his homeworld faced complete annihilation from the advancing machine swarms. Lieutenant Colonel Grace Williams studied the intelligence reports and estimated that the Zephyrian Empire had lost 70% of its territory to the Devourer advance. Over 80% of their military forces had been destroyed or consumed by the relentless machines. The crystal beings were facing the same extinction that they had tried to inflict on humanity. The human command staff gathered aboard Admiral Morrison's flagship to debate their options. Colonel Frank Davis argued strongly for proceeding with their original mission. He reminded everyone of Earth's ashes and the billions of human dead who deserved justice. The Zephyrians had shown no mercy when they attacked humanity, and deserved none in return. Captain Linda Thompson presented the opposing view with equal passion. She pointed out that allowing the Devourers to complete their conquest would doom every living species in the galaxy, including the human colonies. The machines would not stop with the Zephyrian Empire, but would continue consuming until nothing remained but lifeless metal. Chief designer Laura Kim had been studying the machine technology through long-range scans. Her analysis showed that the Devourers possessed the ability to learn and adapt at incredible speed. Any weapon used against them would be analyzed and countered within hours. Traditional military tactics were completely useless against an enemy that evolved continuously. Captain Maria Santos spoke for many of the fleet commanders when she said that revenge meant nothing if humanity was destroyed afterward. The Devourers represented an existential threat to all organic life and had to be stopped regardless of past grievances. Fighting them alongside the Zephyrians might be distasteful, but it was necessary for survival. Dr. Sam Parker presented technical data showing that human modifications to Zephyrian technology might be effective against the machines. The combination of crystal shields and human weapons created energy patterns that the Devourers had not encountered before. This gave the Allied forces a potential advantage in battle. Navigation Officer Pete Johnson reported that massive Devourer swarm ships were approaching the Zephyrian capital system. Long-range sensors showed formations of machine vessels, each the size of a small moon. They moved with perfect coordination toward their target, like a plague of mechanical locusts devouring everything in their path. Admiral Morrison faced the most difficult decision of his career. Every human in the fleet wanted revenge for Earth's destruction, but proceeding with their original plan might doom the entire galaxy. The weight of billions of lives rested on his shoulders as he considered options that seemed equally terrible. Captain Rick Allen's scout ships provided real-time updates on the approaching Devourer fleet. His pilots, like Lieutenant Jenny Clark, risked their lives to gather intelligence on enemy capabilities. The machine ships showed no weak points or vulnerable systems that conventional weapons could exploit effectively. The debate continued for hours as the human command staff struggled with an impossible choice. Rear Admiral Nick Thompson pointed out that the Devourers would eventually reach human space, whether the Zephyrians survived or not. Fighting them now with alien allies was better than facing them alone later. Captain Brian Lewis reminded everyone that they had sworn an oath to avenge Earth and its people. Breaking that promise would dishonor the memory of everyone who had died in the original attack. The crystal beings deserved to face human justice for their crimes against humanity. Commander Joe Roberts studied the technical specifications of both fleets and concluded that neither humans nor Zephyrians could defeat the Devourers alone. Only by combining their technologies and fighting together did they have any chance of stopping the machine invasion. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Susan Davis spoke about the moral implications of their choice. She argued that allowing genocide to continue made humans no better than their enemies. Choosing to save lives, even alien lives, was what separated civilization from barbarism. The final decision came when Admiral Morrison realized that revenge without a future was meaningless. If humanity destroyed the Zephyrians only to be consumed by machines afterward, then Earth's children would never see justice served. The greater threat had to be dealt with first, regardless of personal feelings. Time was running out as the Devourer swarms approached their target. Admiral Morrison gave the order that would change galactic history forever. The human fleet would engage the machines alongside their former enemies. Revenge would have to wait while they fought for the survival of all organic life. The massive human armada began moving toward the Zephyrian capital system, where the fate of the galaxy would be decided. 900,000 ships that had been built for vengeance were about to fight for something far more important than justice. They were about to fight for the right of all living things to exist. Admiral Morrison made the decision that would echo through galactic history for thousands of years. Despite the burning desire for revenge that lived in every human heart, he ordered the massive fleet to engage the Devourers alongside their former enemies. The survival of all organic life was more important than settling old scores with the Zephyrians. The Battle of Zephyr Prime became the largest space engagement ever recorded in galactic history. Captain Brian Lewis commanded the first wave of human dreadnoughts as they crashed into the Devourer formations near the Crystal homeworld. The modified weapons that combined human and alien technology proved surprisingly effective against the machine armor. Squadrons of human fighters led by pilots like Commander Julia Adams and Lieutenant Kevin Brown found themselves flying alongside Zephyrian crystal ships in desperate dogfights among the planet's moons. The alien pilots had initially been suspicious of their human allies, but quickly learned to trust each other when facing the relentless machine swarms. The Devourer hive ships were massive beyond imagination. Each one was the size of a small moon and spawned thousands of smaller attack units every hour. The machines showed no fear or hesitation as they threw themselves against the combined Allied fleet with mechanical precision that never wavered or made mistakes. General Paul Miller coordinated ground operations as human Marines landed on Zephyr, primed to defend key installations alongside Crystal Warriors. The alien soldiers were tall insect-like beings made of living crystal, but they fought with the same desperation. As humans when protecting their homes and families, the battle raged for 3 days without pause as more machine reinforcements continued, arriving from the Galactic Core. Captain Steve Turner led battleship formations that engaged the largest Devourer vessels in brutal close-range combat. His ship, the UES Retribution, took heavy damage but kept fighting with half its weapons destroyed. Commander Chris Evans worked frantically in the engineering sections trying to find a weakness in the machine designs. The human modifications to Zephyrian technology had created unexpected interactions that seemed to disrupt Devourer systems. He collaborated with Crystal scientists to develop new countermeasures against the mechanical enemy. The breakthrough came when Chief Engineer Mary Johnson discovered that the quantum signatures of the combined human and alien technologies created a feedback loop in the machine collective consciousness. Working with Zephyrian researchers, she developed a computer virus that could propagate through the entire Devourer network. Captain Alan Clark volunteered for the most dangerous mission of the war. His heavily damaged battleship was loaded with experimental quantum weaponry and set on a collision course with the primary Devourer command ship. He knew it was a one-way trip, but someone had to deliver the virus payload directly to the machine core. The explosion when Alan's ship impacted the enemy command vessel was visible from 3 star systems away. The quantum weapons combined with the computer virus created a cascade failure that spread through the machine network like wildfire. Devourer units began shutting down across the entire battlefront. With their collective consciousness disrupted, the remaining machines became easy targets for the Allied fleet. Captain Maria Santos led cleanup operations that destroyed the disabled Devourer vessels before they could reboot their systems. The immediate threat was ended, but everyone knew more machines would come eventually. In the aftermath of victory, Zephyrian Supreme Commander Keith Varr approached Admiral Morrison under a flag of truce. The alien leader who had ordered Earth's destruction now stood before the human commander with his crystal features, showing genuine remorse and confusion about what had happened. Keth. Varr spoke words that began a new era in galactic relations. He admitted that the Zephyrians had attacked Earth in ignorance and arrogance without understanding what humanity truly was. He could not comprehend how a species they had wronged so terribly could show such mercy when they could have chosen revenge. Instead, Admiral Morrison's response became legendary across human space and was taught to children for generations afterward. He said that humans remembered their dead, but they did not let the memory of those losses turn them into the same kind of monsters that had destroyed Earth in the first place. The formal surrender of the Zephyrian Empire to the human fleet was unlike any conquest in galactic history. Instead of demanding territory or tribute, Admiral Morrison proposed something unprecedented. He suggested creating a galactic alliance that would defend against future Devourer incursions while allowing all species to rebuild and prosper. The Terran-Zephyrian Accords established humanity as the primary defenders of the galaxy, while granting them territorial rights to restore human civilization. The crystal beings would provide technology and resources to help rebuild Earth while human forces protected alien worlds from machine attacks. Captain Helen Martin was among the first to return to the Sol system as part of the restoration fleet. She found Earth exactly as the Zephyrians had left it 5 years earlier, a burned, lifeless rock covered in radioactive ash where billions of humans had once lived and loved and dreamed. The joint terraforming project took 7 years to complete. Human engineers worked with alien scientists to restore the atmosphere and oceans, while crystal technology helped neutralize the radiation. New cities were built on the ruins of the old ones, but the planet was designated as a memorial world. Captain Steve Turner commanded the rebuilt Earth Defense Station, where the names of all who died in the original attack were carved into crystal monuments. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the place where humanity had chosen mercy over revenge and saved everyone in the process. The 900,000 ships that had been built for vengeance became the foundation of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Human commanders like Captain Brian Lewis and Captain Maria Santos led mixed crews of different species as they patrolled the borders, watching for signs of new devourer incursions. Admiral Morrison often visited the memorial gardens on Earth where Colonel Ben Hayes was remembered along with billions of others. The final message from Antarctica had asked for remembrance and vengeance, but humanity had found a better way to honor their dead than perpetuating cycles of hatred. The Zephyrians proved to be valuable allies once they understood human nature. Their crystal technology combined with human innovation created defensive systems that could detect devourer scouts long before they reached inhabited worlds. The galaxy was safer because former enemies had learned to work together. Years later, when new machine threats emerged from unexplored regions, the Alliance was ready. Human captains and Zephyrian commanders fought side by side against mechanical swarms, while other species contributed their own unique abilities to the common defense. Captain Turner often looked up at the stars from Earth's surface and remembered the choice that Admiral Morrison had made at Zephyr Prime. Humanity's greatest victory was not the destruction of their enemies, but the wisdom to choose a future worth fighting. For when the moment of ultimate decision arrived, the species that had lost everything learned that sometimes mercy was the greatest strength of all.